Hi, folks. This is Don King, and I think we worked out our bugs from the other day. If you were with us on Tuesday, we tried to interview Darlene Smith from Walter State, and she is on with me here via Zoom. And what we learned then was that people could hear me, but they couldn't hear Darlene. And Darlene, go ahead and say something so I can tell whether I can hear you.
Okay, hello everybody.
Okay, I'm hearing you just fine, and about the only way I can test this is for us to just go ahead and record and see that it's working. But if I can believe what my screen is telling me, then in fact you're working. Yay!
Yay!
So let's just say right up front, a lot of what we do with mobile and emerging technology, both here at Pellissippi State, and I know it's true for you guys there at Walter State, we're figuring out what doesn't work as well as what does. We're dealing in areas where we really don't have a whole lot of background or experience or whatever. So
We like to call it cutting edge here because when you're on the cutting edge, that means no one's ever been there before. So you know there's going to be kinks and there's going to be things to figure out. But if we're not there, we would never know what's out there, what possibilities are there. So I like being out on this edge.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you just got to figure when you're on the cutting edge that you're going to need band-aids.
See it? Perfect segue there.
Kind of works out. So for folks who are joining us here, we are not going to try to replicate what we did on Tuesday. This is just our conversation, but knowing that people didn't get to hear your side of it on Tuesday, if we can remember what we talked about, we'll go ahead and bring some of that sort of thing out. So for folks who are following this page, they're probably more connected with Pellissippi State's Mobile Fellows program. But you may or may not know, listener, that Walter State is really the pioneer in the state in this regard. I think that Darlene, you and David White and several other folks here at Walter State really started with the mobile and emerging technology stuff, what, 4 or 5 years ago? Is that accurate?
I think it was around 2012, I believe. So yeah, you're right on it.
Yeah, about 4 years ago. And you've learned a lot. You've learned a lot by making mistakes and that sort of thing. The specific thing we had in mind for this conversation was that you have particularly done a lot with Periscope, which if people are not familiar with it, how would you describe Periscope?
Periscope is a way to broadcast live from any location to anybody that's interested in your topic. That's the way I would describe it. I love the feature that you can have interaction with the audience. That's one of my loves, is because if I'm talking about something and someone that's listening doesn't understand, I get immediate feedback right there on my screen that I can clear something up very quickly. So I love that aspect of it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Oop, lost your sound there for just a bit.
Am I there?
Yeah, you're there now.
Okay. And two, it's in real time, just like we are doing right now. Periscope is in real time as well. So when you're getting these questions and comments, the feedback coming back to you, it is right there in the moment with someone who is actually listening in.
Okay. Need a lot of equipment for it?
Nothing. I just carry my trusty iPhone around.
Okay.
I also use an iPad from time to time, depending on how much space I have on which device. And you just launch the app, and you actually go live. Give it a title and go live. And some people don't even give it a title. If you look at the research, you have a better audience. You have a better attendance with your audience if you can come up with a catchy little title. One of the, I do the 20-minute mentor series here at Walter State, and every Tuesday morning I go live. With something that's happening with technology on one of our campuses, and one of the ones I've already done is the drone, and the title was "Flying with a Freaking Drone," and then when I put that out there, we had 174 people attend that, and I ended up having to shut it down like minute 25, 26. We'd already gone over the 20-minute time frame. And I had to go to class, so I just had to say, guys, thanks for all the questions, for all the feedback. They just kept coming. They stayed right there with me through the whole thing. So I do know a catchy title seems to be what brings your audience in. If you just do something drab or don't give it a title at all, I can easily, when I see the notification, I can look down and say, I don't have time for that today. But if it's a topic that interests me, it might draw me in just by what you are labeling it that day.
Okay. And you're using this with education, obviously. So are you broadcasting from your classroom? Are you broadcasting from your office for your students? How are you using it like that?
We've used it all kinds of different ways. For the 20-minute mentor series, I've actually been in a live classroom that's running, a real world classroom running right then and there, and they were using an app. They were using a comic strip app to build something on a term that they had been introduced to during the class time. And so they were having to explain it with a comic strip. And so I got to see the beginning to the end procedures of that and had us right in the classroom. We were outside, of course, with the drone, flying the drone above the campus here in Morristown campus and capturing video and talking about, what that looks like. Actually, the guy sent me some of the video from the drone, and I posted it later on Periscope, talking about it on Periscope so people could see the end result. The 3D printer, we were in the 3D lab, and they actually made a little keychain while we were right there in the presence. So we can be many different ways. Sometimes when I'm out and I see something worthy to go live, it doesn't matter where it's at. And in my classroom last semester, every Friday my students did presentations, and I went live from my classroom with my students every Friday. And that's really when I figured out the channel, the date, and the time, consistency on that with Periscope. Because there was a Friday I had to go to Volunteer State to speak to their faculty, and so I dismissed class. But my phone started going off at 10 till 10. The viewers wanted to know where I was at. They had students there waiting. The students were in a K-12 setting. We're coming back from specials, and they usually eat their snack and would watch my students live, and we weren't there that day, and they wanted to know where we were at. So that's when it first began. I began to realize, OMG, it's very important to set up a specific day and time if you really want to draw in a good audience. They have to be prepared for you to come on.
Okay. So you've got.
We talked about Oprah Winfrey being on at 4:00 every afternoon. You knew if you wanted to see her, you had to be home in front of the TV. There's no difference. People still need to be preparing for us to go live.
Okay, so you've got a regular schedule, but then you'll also go live just whenever it seems appropriate. One of the things that we had talked about a little earlier, people who've used Periscope for a while, it used to be an important third-party kind of app, a site called Catch.me. It was spelled Katch. And you could set that up to where it would save the Periscope recording for you so that people could watch it later.
Right.
Periscope itself natively will keep the recording, I think, for 24 hours, right?
It's live for 24, which means you can even go back and view it. And when I look at my data, I will have people who attended live and even replay numbers. So even if you go into a later date, I'll get that notification that you replayed, but only for 24 hours.
Okay. So one of the things, and by the way, a little side trip here, we always invite people when they take part with us in video to get a cup of coffee or something. I've got a soda today.
How about some water?
Yeah. And so we invite people to go get a cup of coffee and sit with us for a while. Makes it a little more personal.
That's great.
One of the things we talked about earlier was that with Catch.me gone, it doesn't exactly eliminate Periscope, but you got to look for some other options, some other means. We're kind of thinking about Facebook Live. Obviously, we're on Facebook Live right now. And this is a little different. People who are used to seeing Facebook Live from individuals will recognize that it's a different look, and that's because we're using a different tool. Upsides and downsides, we have more control over what we feed to Facebook Live like this. But this is an experiment for us as well. I was just experimenting a little bit to see if I could see comments from people on Facebook as this video is going out. And there's got to be a way to do it, but it's not working the way that it does with Facebook Live as an individual doing it on your phone. So I got to figure that one out. I'm losing a little bit of the live interaction with our audience
Yeah, and when I've been viewing the Facebook Live, I don't even remember seeing. Is there a place I can see the comments, even if it's just viewing? And if I wasn't on it right now, is there a way I can view I just see like all of the thumbs up and things coming across the screen, but I don't think I've noticed the comment. It must be down below the video. Is that where it comes in at?
I'm not 100% sure. I think so on your phone. I'm going to have to experiment with the personal on the phone a little bit. But I think if you happen to have your phone like here and you've got your computer over here to the side to your Facebook page, that you're able to see the comments like that. This gives me an idea to try something over here on my desktop computer.
Okay.
I'll pull up the... have to wait for Firefox to warm up.
See what we see. That's a great idea.
Let's just kind of see whether I can see Facebook comments on a different monitor here. So folks listening to us here, all of this is an experiment, and that's kind of what we're about here. Hope we don't cause an implosion having two different places. Okay, so I can. I'm not going to start it running because we'll get sound in the background.
Right.
But I can see that the video is there. I'm not seeing any comments. That may be because nobody's made them. You know.
Do you see the comment box below there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, then maybe it is. Maybe we can get one of your viewers. Would one of the viewers please send us a comment?
And see, there's not a real easy way, I don't think, for me to tell that there are viewers, which on the personal Facebook Live, I could tell.
Right.
So this may be the difference between it being an individual private account and it being a page. We'll experiment with that. But again, for folks who are watching it and realizing it looks different here, we're using an open source piece of software called Open Broadcaster Studio that allows me to bring all kinds of things into it and then feed it to Facebook. I'm thinking if I click on my own picture on this thing, no, it's not going to make me bigger. That's fine. But it does. It just gives us a little bit more freedom to bring things in and not be tied to a mobile phone.
Right.
But then we're finding limitations to it. So, one of the things we're going to experiment with is how do we like this versus Periscope versus what else would be out there? I mean, is there any?
Well, there's Meerkat. It was probably came out about the same time as Periscope, but for whatever reason, Periscope seemed to catch on quickest. But I think one of the reasons for that is because not long after Periscope's launch, Twitter got involved with them and purchased it. And I think that gave Periscope the boost they needed to come past Meerkat. But it does the same thing. And there might be 2 or 3 others, but the Meerkat, the Facebook Live, and Periscope are the ones I'm most familiar with. But they all ran about the same way.
Okay.
It's
Now,
preference, and it's where I used Periscope because it had the most traffic at the time. And audience, if you've got all those Twitter folks. 2, I could send out notifications. Can you send out notifications with yours? Will people get notified that you're live today?
Yes.
Okay.
If it's one of the potential advantages, and I keep hearing things in my ear. I don't know if I'm getting notifications right now. As a matter of fact, it's one of the potential things about Facebook Live that. We all know Facebook has some kind of an algorithm to decide what posts get shown to your friends and all that. What we do know that they are boosting Facebook Live. So if anybody on your friends list goes live, you're going to get a notification of that.
Gotcha. Because Delia, I don't have my settings right because some of my friends go live with Facebook, but I don't see it until I actually open up my Facebook account and I go into notifications there. So I must not have something set right on my device.
I'll have to check about that because notifications going to your phone is a whole different aspect than, if you're on Facebook on your PC and
you get notified that way.
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. I'll do some more digging into that to see how that might work.
Because what happens on Periscope is because people follow you. Like I will get notified on my iWatch.
Right.
Someone will say so and so's gone live and here's their topic. and I can choose to whether to jump in there or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know whether Facebook Live did that or not.
And there's just so many things to it. I think I've got to figure out exactly how to set it. I know that on our PSCC Mobile Fellows page, and we'll get a plug in here, people who would like to follow this, if you go to facebook.com/PSMobs, that stands for Pellissippi State Mobile Fellows, PS Mobs. There's the like button up there, and then when you click on it, you have the option in your news feed, see first or default. Of course, the default setting is default. And then below that is notifications, and you can turn all off or on, and it says in parentheses live videos. So that's specifically about notifications. Now, whether that's notifications that go to your phone or notifications that show up somewhere else in Facebook, I'm not 100% sure. I do see that I've got some messages. Doesn't look like anybody's saying anything to us about what's going on right now, though.
But either way, the main thing is establishing, regardless what tool you're using, establishing that day and time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Time, and then that way I know if I want to see Pellissippi's Mobile Fellows live show here, I'm going to have to come on X day at such and such time.
And I mean that's excellent advice, regardless of what platform you're using.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest things I found out really fast, because sometimes I would just go live as I'm walking into class, and I'll be like, I wonder what the educators are going to be into today, and walk in, and we might have a little short conversation. But if you're on and off so quickly, I, as the viewer, don't even have time to get my device up to try to get connected to you before you're already done.
Well, and that probably had something to do with Periscope coming into the lead. As I recall, Meerkat was the first, and as they came up, though, it was strictly streaming. They had no recording aspect, and then Periscope came along and preserved it for 24 hours. Right. Catch.me, when it was running, would preserve both Meerkat and Periscope feeds, so that gave another way of having those recordings. Facebook automatically saves it as a recording, and will save it forever if you want it to. You can delete it. But the default is for it to be recorded and therefore available. The other thing that has caught our eye at Pellissippi about the potential for Facebook Live was when we did a test. We've had a YouTube channel for a while. We would do well to get 20 views on our YouTube stuff. And of course, it wasn't in real time.
Right.
When Brandon Ballantyne and I ran a test just to see how the Facebook Live worked, it was before we had set up our Pellissippi Mobile Fellows page, so we were just using my personal account.
Right.
And we went on there, and within 2 minutes, we had 258 people who had tuned in. And we thought, wow, this has got some potential. We got to figure out how to make it work.
That's exactly. And I find that even, here's what I'm finding in my classroom. Most times it's Fridays that I go live, that my students are doing their presentations. And each week, the number kept growing and growing. I remember one week we had close to 180 people that came into the room, and were asking questions. My students were doing experiments, and they had talking about the water cycle, and they had a jar with water and maybe some Cool Whip and some blue dye, and when they pour the blue dye in there, some of it comes down, some of it doesn't. There were all kinds of questions being asked the students, well, what if you use this product instead of this, or what do you think would happen? And we were all walking through it, and there were close to 180 people in that room. So my potential, my thoughts is that, yes, I have 30 students in the classroom, but think about touching 180 more. Some of those being those K-12. We don't know who we're actually touching at the time, because you don't know whether it's on the big. I had no idea they had me on the big screen for their students to watch. But what a great thought that is. I mean, think about the outreach that our community colleges and other places could have just with that thought alone, if we expanded out to try to touch the community.
Now, it sounds like that for you, the live, the immediate aspect of it is more important than the recording. You have found a way to put it out to YouTube, and you do preserve the recording, but.
And I like to preserve the recording because, our society is very, is very accustomed to the on-demand stuff now. Think about it. If I can't be home to watch my favorite TV show, most of us have capabilities of recording that and going back in later on and watching it another time. I do want, because you never know, I may need a replay, you may want to replay, or it may be I was just tied up at that particular moment, but I want to go back because that topic sounds like it's something very interesting to me. I've also found that certain days and times do better than others. I don't know whether you found that out to be true with Facebook Live, but I remember during the football season, Sunday night football, I went in there at the beginning, just to, I'm just acclimating myself to how everything works. But I would go in and do an app, some type of app for the week on Sundays during football season, football. And the ratings, the numbers, the audience members were twice the amount that I would normally get on other days. Tuesday was not a really good day. I don't know what is about Tuesday, but Tuesday afternoons were not good days. But that Sunday night, about 8:15 is when I would go live. And I'd just be there in my kitchen at my house, and people would just pour in. And I had huge numbers during that time. So I don't know whether it was wives of the husbands who are watching.
Yeah, people who weren't into football.
I don't see Facebook Live or Periscope as being, it's a great educational tool. It allows us to touch so many people. Even on snow days, I went live, although my students weren't able to meet me in class, I still went live, and they had the option of following me. And just think about, you could actually, with Periscope, you could actually teach and have your students interacting with you through the chat bar even. So there's really no snow days left. But it's not just education. I can see many uses in the world for it. I mean, if I live in a trafficked city that's people want to come, or I'm trying to get people to come, go live, show me what's there, what would draw me in. I mean, it's what we eat, where the hangouts for young people. I mean, it's endless of where the possibility of this could go.
Okay.
But the education is my love.
Oh yeah. Well, and do you have any thoughts about Facebook Live versus Periscope?
I really think it all comes down to what you are introduced to first. Think about it. I'm very comfortable on Periscope. I know the ins and outs. I know everything I need to do to save it. I know exactly what to do. You are getting more familiar with the Facebook Live. I bet if you're not already saying it, in a short amount of time, you'll be like, this is my favorite. It's really what you get used to. Regardless, a few tricks of the trade I've found is, it's amazing. You stick a camera up in front of yourself, you will stutter around, and it was so difficult. And as I was closed captioning my videos is when I figured this out. If I said once, I said it 5,000 times. But you don't notice it until you start closed captioning. I was thinking, I just need to stop this Periscope stuff. I sound very uneducated. But then the more right now, and I'm sure you feel the same way, I do not blink an eye. Pulling up that app, typing in a title, and go to live broadcast, and I never think twice. Because what I found is people like it when we're real. I mean, they like to see that side of us where it's not polished and everything's perfect. They like to know that we are just your average kind of people, and sometimes we're going to mispronounce something, or sometimes we're going to stutter on our words, but it's okay because we're just like everybody else. So I really don't even think a thing about it. I just go live, and I never think, oh, what am I going to say? And it just starts flowing, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons Brandon and I, when we started our podcast, started it with the two of us, because it's just much more interesting listening to a conversation like what we're doing right here than just sitting and today we're going to talk about, just the looking at the camera. It's really tough. It's really tough.
And the old show, and I don't remember the name, but it was Tim Allen, and was it The Tool Man? Do you remember that show?
Tim the Tool Man, yeah.
All right, Do you remember the neighbor who you never saw his face?
Yeah.
Remember if from the nose up across the fence or behind his paper?
Hmm.
That's kind of the role that I play when I'm periscoping. It's very rare that you will see my face on the camera. I am actually doing the interviewing. But I find it so much easier because I can kind of, when you get stalled and you don't know what to say next, I can kind of help lead you in that direction. So
Hmm.
I know I got some feedback one time. Somebody said we'd like to know what you look like. You're introducing all these people, but we don't even know who you are.
Oh
They knew
yeah.
my voice, but they didn't know what I looked like. And there's a purpose in that. I think that was very enticing on the Toolman show that the neighbor, it was always very intriguing when he came up because you thought, is this the day you're going to get to see his face?
Yeah, that was a great gimmick that they had with that.
It was. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So I kind of feel like the neighbor where I'm hid behind the camera, but I like it that way. And you almost in the Periscope, if you stop and think about it, it works so much better with a two-man, just like what you just said,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
somebody has to monitor the comments coming in because, as you know, it's not always appropriate, and you kind
Right.
of sometimes have to take care of those. And two, to stay focused in talking, plus reading the feeds, plus trying to answer those, that can get. I mean, you almost might need to have a mass communications degree if you try all that.
Yeah, and in those settings, I mean, we know that in a television show, radio show, there are several people behind the scenes who are taking care
Right,
of things.
right.
So that makes a lot of sense. It's much more conversational, like
Yes,
this.
it is.
We've got things to figure out with the Facebook Live, and it just, to me, it makes it that much more, I guess confusing is the word, that Facebook Live on a page is different than Facebook Live if I were originating it just from my own account.
Yeah, you're right.
So
You're
we'll
right.
figure those things out. But then on the other hand, one of the advantages I think there might be for Facebook Live is that you reach a larger audience that is at the same time more focused. And by that I mean the only people who are really going to be seeing this video are people who are following the PSCC Mobile Fellows page.
Mhm.
Now, other people later on can come and like the page. They'd be able to see it. But it's not just, hey, anybody in the world that wants to come in here. So I would see there would be less problems for people making comments that just aren't appropriate.
You're
There,
right. I hadn't thought about that aspect, but you're right.
there's certainly more of an
The people who are there are the people who want to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also much more opportunity. And again, I'm not seeing comments right now. It may just be because we're still live. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But if somebody makes an inappropriate comment, it's very easy as the administrator of a Facebook page to block that person or to remove their comments or whatever. So it's both more open and more closed, if that makes sense.
Yes, and you can do the same thing with Periscope. I've blocked several people because you get those random folks who come in who may not be there for the right reasons. And then you can unblock them if you want. I've never chosen to go back and unblock them. If they got blocked, they're blocked.
There's a good reason, yeah.
That's exactly right. But a lot of times that comment already gets in there before you can get it stopped because you'll see it visibly on the screen. And like you and I right now, we're not looking down to see if anything inappropriate is being said. But that's another monitor you have to do on Periscope. You click though and can immediately block them, but the comment is already out there.
Yeah.
And if you've got it saved, it is saved. There it is for the 24 hours, and it continues to pop up. Does that make sense? So that is, that has been a little bit of a downfall, and I don't know how you stop that. We can't really, but it's going to be part if you're dealing with the world, I guess would be the best way to say.
Well, and without opening up another whole area of discussion, I can see where we're going to need to have more than one conversation here, Darlene.
Sounds great. I would love to.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. We mentioned a little earlier, say it again, what we're using to connect you and me right now is a product called Zoom. Mm-hmm. Zoom is a sort of a conferencing system in and of itself, free for up to a certain number of people. And when we combine it with OBS, the Open Broadcaster Studio, OBS has built into it the possibility of having, I think it's a 7-second loop. You remember in the old radio days when you had a guest on and you thought they might say something inappropriate? They could run it through a delay loop to where people hearing it are hearing it 7 seconds after it's said. So if somebody said a bad word or whatever, the guy in the control booth could hit a button and there'd be a beep that would go in instead, even though it was live.
Right.
It was not really live, it was 7 seconds after, which is not a whole lot. Well, we could do that with OBS, where Periscope doesn't have that. And
No, we don't.
There's just so many possibilities opened up. I want to come back in another episode and talk about what you have learned about using this kind of stuff and ADA compliance, which is something that we're very concerned about across the state. Don't know if Periscope has tried to address some of the ADA compliance issues. I'm not sure if we can. When you put it on YouTube, you've got the opportunity to close caption it, as you were talking about.
Yes, and that's what I do.
And it just occurred to me that I don't know that there's closed captioning available here on Facebook Live.
Well, I was going to ask you earlier, I thought about it. Can you extract your Facebook Live and have it up? Because what I do with Periscope, I have it saved, that video saved to my device.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can upload that into YouTube and easily close caption right there through YouTube app. So I wondered, are you a separate, you said you can go back to the movie, but is that only clips inside, things saved inside of Facebook, or can you extract it out?
We've got at least 3 ways to deal with it with what we're doing right here. Zoom has recording capability of its own.
Right.
So I could record it at the Zoom level. OBS Studio will output a recording. I got to figure out how to make it do that at the same time that it's streaming it, but I know it's capable of doing it. And then one that's a little bit more of a gray area, there are websites out there that will allow you to download a Facebook video. So I could go through one of those, grab my own video, close caption it, and upload it to YouTube.
Yep.
And if we were going to do today's, we'd have to do it that way because I forgot to hit the record button on OBS when we started. And same thing for Zoom. I forgot to hit the button,
I want to point out something else, Don, that I'm not sure that your audience may be aware of, that, I have 3 children, and they are 22, 20, and 18. And they actually are part of the reason that I even started doing social media, because they were on it. And I wanted to be able to monitor as a parent. I wanted to monitor what was going on with them. And if they didn't befriend me, then they didn't have an account. That's just kind of the rules of the house. But now they're not so much on Facebook now as they are Twitter and Instagram. So as you think about Facebook and you think about Periscope, you have a lot of the same opportunities with either one of those, but it may be what audience do you want to reach. The younger people are on Twitter.
That's true, yeah.
And they said the reason they got off Facebook is because, as their words, we owe people to get off. That's what my children say. So really, if you think about the difference in the audience, if you're looking to capture the young people, you've got to get it to Twitter. So what I have done is I've linked my Twitter account to my Facebook account.
Okay.
So if I do Periscope, not only does it show up on my Twitter feed, it shows up on my Facebook feed.
I had noticed that, yeah.
So that way I can capture, it doesn't matter if it's the young students or if it's my age or whatever, I can capture everybody through that time. Now I wonder, I've never tried it because I just went from my Twitter to my Facebook, but can you tie Facebook to your Twitter? You
can, at least through, the website If This Then That.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There is a way to go through that if there's not an app built into Facebook for doing it.
Okay. Because I would almost think if you're going to do Facebook Live, you'd want to connect the 2 social media platforms. That way, you've already expanded your audience even to a bigger bigger audience base than what you would have had you just stuck with one or the other.
Oh, yeah. That's an
But I know in
excellent
your
point.
case, you're actually pulling in folks from with Facebook Live based on them liking your page.
Mm-hmm.
So, that may not be. I just know I was wanting to try to capture as much of the audience base as I could. So I thought if I hit both places, I might have a better chance of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're certainly going to look into that.
Let's finish the pot.
We've been going for about 35 minutes at this point. So,
We're having fun.
indeed. So, folks listening, we will come back for some more conversations with Darlene, as well as bringing in some of the mobile fellows from Pellissippi State. Maybe we can get Dr. Robbie Melton on here at some point, one of the pioneers in mobile and emerging technology in the world. We'll just kind of see where we can go with this. But for now, we will bid you goodbye. We're going to find out in just a few minutes how the video did, because now I can go back and take a look at it. I hope they can hear both of us. And I'll throw a shout out there, as a matter of fact. The last time we tried this, my wife was doing her best to get my attention to tell me that your audio was not coming through.
Yeah.
And I have therefore been watching my phone this time. You keep seeing me glance over here. One of my lessons is always listen to your wife.
Amen.
But I have not seen any texts from her, so that either means this is working okay, or it means that she's not watching. We'll see which way that goes.
Okay.
So, folks, thank you for joining us today. Hope you will like the page if you've just gotten on here, and we will see you the next time. Now, Darlene, I've got to figure out how to end this thing.
I'm sure you will be able to.
So give me just a second here. Folks can laugh while I'm trying to figure this out.
Okay.
I've lost my window for ending it, so I may just have to shut the computer down. We'll see folks next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.